And I just have to go live on Facebook.
Okay, Marianne, are we good?
Yeah, I'm just checking that we should be live. Yes. We are live.
Thank you, Marianne. Good morning, everybody. It's our April full authority board meeting for the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority. It's April 20th, 2022. And again, we do have this meeting recorded and available on Facebook. And the instructions are there. So moving on now to a roll call. So Elizabeth, do you want to do a roll call?
Dennis Krebitz is arriving as we speak. Dominique Chiguer.
Present.
Steve Harvey.
Here.
Jim Herbert.
Here.
Grant Jones.
Here.
Bill Mackey.
Here.
Steve Peters.
Here.
Elizabeth Pelosa.
Here.
Allison Warwick.
Here.
Ralph Winfield.
Here.
Chair, we have all 10 members present.
Excellent. Okay, so now that we know how everybody's here, I'm just going to ask for a declaration of any pecuniary interest. I don't have you on the screen, all of you. It's a split screen, so speak up if you do. If I don't hear anything, then I know we're good. So nothing to declare. Thank you. The next part of this is hearing board. Nothing for that, right? Okay, minutes of the past meeting. The past meeting was March 16th, 2022. And I'm sure members have a chance to look through those minutes. Any concerns? No, hearing none. Mover to accept the minutes as presented.
Herbert moves.
Thank you. Second. Harvey second. And Elizabeth, do you want to call the vote?
Krebitz.
Yes.
Chiguer.
Yes.
Harvey.
Yes.
Herbert.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Pelosa.
Yes.
Winfield.
Yes.
And Warwick.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Thank you. So moving on now to matters arising, we have those A through E, and we'll start with A, which is the media report. And Marianne, I'm looking for you.
So this month for our media report, we did our first round of social media announcements for the launch of Deer Ridge Conservation Area. So on the right, you'll see one of our Facebook posts with just over 4,000 people reached. And then to the left of it, just some, news. So MyFM featured Deer Ridge in the community spotlight earlier this month. So and interviews with both Allison and Grant, and as well as the Gills who donated the property. So that's all for media report this month. If there's any questions.
Any questions from board? Hearing none. Thanks, Marianne. That was it was a wonderful news story to begin with, and thank you for your help getting that out there. So it's great, and I'm sure we'll be hearing lots about it in the next little while. So now we are now into project tracking. Elizabeth.
So Deer Ridge took a lot of staff time over the past month and time before that. But we did a lot of communications and outreach into the community, going door to door with our new neighbors along Deer Ridge, just making sure that they're aware of it and introducing ourselves to that community. Betsy was successful in getting $40,000 from the Green Lane Community Trust, once again to support the Elgin Clean Water Program, which was very much appreciated. 16 projects were reviewed by the Elgin Clean Water Program, and 13 projects were approved for totaling over $46,000 in grants to landowners, and that work will begin throughout the next little while. And we also launched our new KCCA website. So that was a big job for Marianne, coming back from a year off to update our website, as well as the trust website as well, with a great new look, and it's all AODA compliant as well, which is good news. And on top of all that, we're getting the campgrounds up and running, so onboarding seasonal staff and getting our new seasonal campers through their paperwork and ready to start the season on May 1st as well.
Great. Nice to see lots of good news in that project tracking. A big thanks to Marianne. The website looks fabulous and a great job. Members, any questions for Elizabeth or Marianne?
Chair,
Yeah, Dennis?
just, but is there a waiting list at the campground right now, or what is the status of the full-time campgrounds?
Yeah, there's an unbelievable, I guess, interest in both of the campgrounds. And so last year, remember, we went to a lottery system to handle all of the new interest in both campgrounds. So we post available sites, and within like half an hour, we have enough interest in those new sites to handle the lottery system. So still lots of interest in the campgrounds.
Okay, thank you, that's good news.
Good. Any other questions? No, seeing none, we're going to move on to watershed conditions. Jennifer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's been reasonably quiet month, other than the insane snowfall that we got on April 1st and just this past weekend, but we'll just try to forget about that. Water levels have been fluctuating with those rain events. We had to put out a couple of media releases for flood outlooks for rainfall and for wind events, which have been pretty crazy. Snow surveys are still ongoing, surprise. They go until May. And we completed WECI final reporting for the most recent WECI project.
Okay. Any questions regarding the watershed? Hearing none, thank you, Jennifer. Moving on to insurance renewal, Elizabeth.
Chair, the report was in the advanced package. Marianne, if I can have the next slide. So this is insurance renewals for the upcoming year, April to April. We budgeted for an increase of 15%. The overall increase that came in was 16%. And this is relatively good news, especially in this hard market where things continue to increase, and the Conservation Ontario Group Insurance Program does a good job in terms of negotiating the best case scenario for us. So that increase accounts for increases in values and a change to the errors and emissions. The E&O is now made up of 4 layers, but it still provides the same coverage that we did in the past. However, there is now a $5,000 deductible for directors and officers liability and $15,000 for employment practices liability. The program has been able to negotiate out of that for the past couple of years, knowing that it was coming. There's not a lot of policies out there that don't have a deductible for this anymore. So it finally came to fruition this year. There's a chart in the advanced packages that summarizes the overall, but again, relatively pleased with this increase compared to the hard market that's out there to negotiate.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Thanks, Elizabeth. And you're right, it's hard to get insurance. So I think that even though it's an increase, it's not as bad as what we've been seeing across the board over the past year. All right, so Conservation Ontario Annual General Meeting. Elizabeth.
Yeah, the chair and I attended the meeting virtually. There was an election of officers and there's a new chair at Conservation Ontario, Alan Rebel. He was previously the vice chair. He's been elected to chair. And Alan Dale locally is with the Upper Thames. He was elected into the vice chair position. Just one other thing to highlight, you'll recall last year as a low growth CA, we agreed to report our numbers to Conservation Ontario in terms of our Section 28 permits and whether or not we're meeting the provincial timelines. Some good stats have come out of that tracking system with the high growth CAs. There's 14 of them. They issued over 7,000 permits, with 91% being issued within the provincial timelines. And an equally good return for the non-high growth CAs. 17 of those, which KCCA is included in that group. Again, 4,000 permits, 93% being issued within provincial timelines. The Conservation Ontario annual report was also included in the advanced package.
Great. Okay, so that's all to do with the matters arising. So that's A through E. Can I have a mover to accept them as presented?
Jones.
Thank you, Grant. Seconder?
Mackey.
Peters.
Okay, here Mackey first and then Peter second. So we'll go with Mackey. And Elizabeth will do the roll call, please.
Credits?
Yes.
Giguère?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Herbert?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Mackey?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Pelosa?
Yes.
Winfield?
Yes.
Warwick?
Yes.
The motion passes.
And now we're moving on to correspondence. Oh, this looks familiar. The correspondence is an invitation to the annual meeting of the Middlesex Municipal Association, and that has been postponed for 2 years. Luckily, we're not using the same food as we had ready for you the first time, so it'll be all fresh. And we look forward to anybody who wishes to attend. It's going to be at a brand new community center in Thorndale, which again was scheduled to be replaced, but replaced sooner because of fire. So like a phoenix, it's risen and it's ready for all of you to come visit. So I hope that you get the chance to come out. Our second correspondence was a Conservation Authorities Program and Service Inventory Workshop invitation. And there's registration details there below. So I do have a recommendation. Is there any questions before we move on? Hearing or seeing none, let the correspondence be received as presented. Looking for a mover?
Peters.
Peters, second?
Winfield.
Kravitz? Okay, all in favor? Elizabeth?
Credits?
Yes.
Giguère?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Herbert?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Mackey?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Pelosa?
Yes.
Winfield?
Yes.
Warwick?
Yes,
Motion passes.
great, thank you. Moving on now to statement and revenue and expenses. And the statements are in front of you.
Yeah.
And is there anything that you want?
The only thing I would point out is this is the first statement since we moved to NMP services to help with the bookkeeping, and we've completed the onboarding process with them. So now things are completely automated. Bill payments are being automated. The chair and vice chair have the ability to approve those electronically, which I think is really streamlined systems. And I'm pleased with the services being provided so far.
Okay, great. Any questions? Seeing none, then I have a recommendation that the statement of revenues and expenses dated March 31st, 2022 be approved. Mover?
Mackey.
Herbert second.
And Herbert second. Elizabeth?
Credits?
Yes.
Giguère?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Herbert?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Mackey?
Yes.
Peters?
Yes.
Pelosa?
Yes.
Winfield,
Yes.
Warwick.
Yes. All right, great, passed. So moving on to new business, we have a report from Elizabeth regarding the COVID-19 policy update.
Thank you. As you all know, the province is moving into a time in the pandemic where we're learning to live with this new virus. And so there's a vast amount of changes that have happened since we last met in terms of loosening some of the restrictions. So the staff have looked at through those loosenings of restrictions and met as a staff to come up with a game plan moving forward. You'll recall that we have an overarching COVID policy, the pandemic flu influenza illness policy that was introduced early in the pandemic. When we reviewed those, we saw definitely that there was updates that we could do to that policy to reflect lessons learned over the past 2 years. So the sections were highlighted in your advanced packages, but we added things like hand washing, physical distancing, staying home when you're sick, and the importance of face coverings as appropriate, as well as encouraging all staff to get their flu shot and any vaccinations that are recommended by the local health unit or the province as required. But on top of that overarching policy, throughout the pandemic, we've had to introduce various safe operating procedures. And again, as a requirement of the government, we needed to introduce a COVID-19 safety plan. And so we developed almost a two-pager again that kind of summarizes all those safe operating procedures that we had as a staff. That COVID safety plan is updated basically as required, almost on a monthly basis. As we know, things change day to day. So that COVID safety plan, again, is no longer mandated by the government, but we still feel that there's a place for it, and it keeps staff on track in terms of what we're doing. So the COVID-19 safety plan has been updated. We are masking our face covering policy. It was connected to the provincial guidelines. So once the provincial guidelines lifted, that mask policy kind of fell off the table as well. It's no longer being mandated, but the staff still feel that we want to promote what we're calling a mask-friendly environment. So while masks are optional and no longer mandated, staff are still allowed to wear them and actually encouraged to wear them, and we're asking all staff to show each other respect and their personal choice to do so. So all of our mask signs have been replaced from mask required to mask optional, and encouraging kindness for personal choices. Staff must still self-screen and abide by the current recommendations for isolation and masking. And the admin center remains open by appointment, again, to ensure that there's staff availability and to promote physical distancing in our small administration public kind of area out front as well. Next slide, Marianne. So as previously mentioned, that face covering policy, it was mandated policy in summer of 2020. It expired when the mandate expired, but staff maintained that policy until around April 4th, and right now remaining mask friendly and in accordance with policy and provincial guidelines. The COVID-19 interim vaccination verification policy was introduced November 24th, 2021, again as provincial mandate, and other organizations are kind of requiring them as well. Staff are recommending this morning that we rescind that policy. Of course, we can't predict what's going to happen in the future. But we believe that the pandemic policy strongly recommends that staff get the flu shot and update all vaccinations as recommended by physician and public health. And at this time, where the vaccination verification policy, I think, served its purpose at the time to encourage staff to get their shot and be the protection there to, push that process in terms of getting the vaccinations in place, whereas as now, without the provincial mandate, we're recommending that policy be rescinded. So the motion that we have before you today, next slide, Marianne, is that the interim vaccination policy be rescinded, and further that the pandemic flu policy be approved as updated.
Okay, thank you. Okay, board members, any comments about this? Questions? Seeing none, hearing none.
Madam Chair,
Yep,
or it's Dominique.
yep.
I just had a quick question about air quality. So I noticed in the health and safety policy, there's emphasis on, surfaces and person to person. But we know with COVID, there's a lot of concern around droplets remaining in the air. So we've talked about how the office is an older building. So I was curious if there's any measures needed to ensure good ventilation or air quality.
Yeah, to Chair, to Dominique, Scott from our office worked with our heating and ventilation company, and they came in and did a full system checkup and maintenance on the system. So we feel like that has been looked at and provides good quality at this time.
Okay, great question. Is there any follow-up, Dominique? Okay, Elizabeth, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Recognizing the COVID-19 pandemic is still evolving and ever changing, and realizing that we've seen local schools have to close due to lack of instructors. I've known of for-profit businesses reintroducing masking amongst staff to make sure they can still continue operation. What is your contingency plan should outbreaks happen at the KCCA, recognizing that we're opening in a couple of weeks for a camp season and we have an onboarding of staff happening?
Yeah, in terms of onboarding the staff, we're doing the training similar to last year. So keeping cohorts and small training, not opening it up to mass training. We have made the decision to keep our gatehouses closed as well, and all the physical barriers are still in place in terms of our staff dealing with the public. So the gatehouses, the public won't be allowed into the gatehouses. It will still be through windows and through those barriers, as well as the gatehouses being closed will allow our staff to do physical distancing rather than being confined in smaller spaces. And again, we're stressing with staff the importance of well, there might not be a mandate, the importance of masking and maintaining those physical distancing and staying home when sick.
Elizabeth, any follow-up?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Great, good questions, everyone. Anybody else? I can't see all of you, so if you don't recognize you, speak up, please. Dominique, I see your hand up.
Madam Chair, just another question regarding the rescinding of the policy. So I'm just debating myself, so the advantage of rescinding the policy. So I'm assuming it would only affect new hires. So, and what would be the disadvantage of just leaving it as is, presuming everybody is already aligned with this policy?
The disadvantages of keeping it in place, it requires management to keep up to breast on the boosters and making sure everyone on staff has the boosters, including board members and volunteers as they come on. And there's some debate whether, I think right now it's 2 shots plus your boosters to be fully vaxxed. So that it does require me to keep up to speed on that as people get the boosters. The vaccination policy, if we wanted to keep it in place, would need to be updated, because while it recognized boosters might be required in the future, it didn't set out timelines for when those boosters needed to be in place. So I'd have to look at that as well. For new hires, what the policy did state is that they would need to be fully vaccinated or identify human rights or medical exemption as well.
Any other questions? It does seem, it's funny, I think we're seeing more and more cases amongst us of COVID that we're debating about loosening things or changing things, but I think the reality is that just like the policy says, living to learn with it and having to work forward. And I don't think there's any perfect solutions to this, but it's what it is, I think. I know that's not a very profound statement, but I think everybody's struggling along with the same questions.
I did have a discussion with legal about, you know, whether to rescind the vaccination policy or not. And, you know, there's no solid black and white legal response to that question as well. When the province is no longer requiring it or mandating it, it falls back to each individual organization to kind of weigh those risks and determine what the way forward that they want to take.
All right, so any other discussion? No, hearing none. So we do have a recommendation that the interim vaccination policy be rescinded and further that the pandemic flu influenza-like illness policy be approved as updated. So I'm going to call the vote now. Oh, actually, sorry, I'm going to ask for a mover first.
Harvey.
Harvey, seconded by Krebitz. And now I'm going to ask to call the vote.
Krebitz,
Yes.
Giguere,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Pelosa,
Yes.
Winfield,
Yes.
Warwick,
Yes.
and that motion passes.
Okay, so moved. Moving on now to Lake Whitaker Small Drinking Water System. Jennifer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the Lake Whitaker Conservation Area, there is 3 small drinking water systems that provide potable water to the campers and staff. And those are maintained under the direction of the Middlesex London Health Unit. They're assessed yearly, and we have a directive that we follow for routine sampling and operation and maintenance. Recently, laboratory analysis fees for our regular sampling process have increased dramatically. Normally and ongoing, we manage and maintain that water system above and beyond what is required under the directive. We collect way more samples and we monitor daily for chlorine residual. So we're working above and beyond what is required under the directive. To maintain, keep at our budget for water sampling, we would like to reduce the number of times that we collect drinking water samples by 2. So we would be sampling twice a month rather than every 2 weeks, and eliminate the HPC testing, which is a non-tracked sampling requirement that is covered off by doing daily chlorine sampling. So we were hoping to get board approval to make those changes to our routine sampling schedule.
Okay. Any questions for Jennifer? And I can't, you have to either speak up or put your hand up because I can't see everybody. Hearing none. Okay, so we have a recommendation that the board approves the changes to the routine sampling schedule of the Lake Whitaker Small Drinking Water System. Do I have a mover?
Winfield.
Okay, seconder.
Pelosa,
Pelosa. Elizabeth, can you call the vote, please?
Krebitz,
Yes.
Giguere,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Pelosa,
yes.
Winfield,
Yes.
Warwick.
Yes.
The motion passes.
So moved. Okay, moving on. Jennifer, don't go anywhere. The Dalewood Dam is yours as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an update and some new business for the Dalewood Dam. We've completed some work with the GD Valley engineers who've prepared 3 schedules of repair options and estimates and drawings for prioritizing the repairs and rehabilitation to the Dalewood Dam. Those cost estimates do range from $150,000 to $610,000 over the 3 schedules. When we originally went into this project, our focus was repairing those deteriorated wing walls. However, when GD Valley engineers did their survey in early 2022, they noted significant deterioration in the spillway from those inspections that were done in 2018 and 2020 under the geotechnical assessment. So scope 1 included the critical work, which is spillway, which needs to be addressed within a year, according to the engineers. Scope 2 looked at those critical works on the spillway plus the additional work to rehabilitate the wing walls. That is something that should be done within 5 years. And scope 3 includes all of scope 1 and scope 2, plus all of the additional refacing and all the extra little bits and bobs that need to be done for the concrete repairs, which needed to be done within 10 years. Based on those cost estimates and prioritization of the work proposed by GD Valley, staff are recommending that we proceed with scope 2 and prepare an RFP for tender with the ability to pull out scope 1 based on budget limitations if needed. So building the tender in that way. Proceeding with that RFP will provide those actual project costs rather than estimates for the proposed work. And that way we can use those finer numbers to decide on a course of action regarding repairs. We can bring those results of the tender to be presented to the board in May. And in additional, due to the complexity of that, of this project and the tender and the work that is involved, staff are proposing that GD Valley be contracted to oversee the tendering process at a cost of $2,970.
Okay, any questions for Jennifer? No, hearing or seeing none. All right, so we have a recommendation that staff proceed with the tendering and Schedule 2 concrete repairs for Dalewood Dam, and that Kettle Creek contract JD Valley to oversee the tendering process at a cost of $2,970. So I've got a mover, Kravitz. Oh, question, sorry, go ahead.
Just on that, Jennifer, the scope 2, it says it's within a 5-year period. What is how's that project seen to be done if we tender for the scope 2? Can you just explain that, please?
So they've set up their schedules based on priority of urgency, so urgency of work. So anything that's in the scope 1 needs to be done within a year. If we do scope 2, it just means that we're getting those wing walls that could say wait 5 years, we're getting them done at the same time. It's like they're not as urgent to be rehabilitated as the spillway.
Okay, yeah, the reason I asked that was because in the budget, it was roughly 100,000 was earmarked in 2022. So there's going to be another additional 220,000 that potentially may be required to do this project within the year.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, we are well aware of this. We started the project, the original estimates from the engineers we were working with to do the ring walls was around 50 to 80. So we budgeted for that 100,000 work. But now with the spillway, that the engineers are saying they've seen a significant change in over the last 5 years, that has become the priority. So to do the spillway plus the wing walls, we weren't anticipating the spillway was an issue. So now it's become a priority. So to do scope 2, it very well be out of budget. for even this year, but what we need to know is the exact cost, because we've got a very wide ranging cost that we've been kind of floated by different engineers. So really, we feel the only way we can get a good budget number is to go out to RFP and get that number.
Follow up?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I agree that it does need to be done, the work. I'm not arguing that. It's the previous company that did the inspection back 4 years ago. Perhaps they weren't as thorough, and I don't know with that WATAC inspection that was done 4 years, there seems to be a lot of deterioration that does happen, but the project does need to be done, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they don't have a way of going away, do they? They seem to keep at you. And I think having an exact figure would be reasonable to move forward with. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, so we have a recommendation. Kravitz moved, second. Jones second. Any other questions before I call the vote? Hearing none, so Elizabeth, whenever you're ready.
Kravitz,
Yes.
Jager,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Pelosa,
Yes.
Winfield,
Yes.
Warwick.
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Okay, so moved. Thank you, Jennifer. Now moving on to Kettle Creek Clean Water Initiative. Betsy.
Here, I have two wetland creation projects to propose to you today for funding. This first project here is an agricultural field that's been left fallow the last few years due to it being seasonally wet and fairly small. So the landowners are looking to naturalize that whole field with about a 0.5 acre wetland. And the remainder of the field will be planted by planted into trees by the KCCA tree planting crew this year. The cost estimate is just over $15,000. So that would be a Kettle Creek Clean Water Initiative grant of $3,000. Elgin Clean Water Program funding has been secured, and we will be showing the site to Ducks Unlimited this week as well. Next slide, Marianne. This second project is a shallow valley land in the area of some other provincially significant wetlands. Currently, it's just, as you can see, left fallow, nothing's happening there. Once again, it's seasonally wet. So we would be looking to put in 2 wetland cells in this area. The project has been estimated at $18,080 with a Kettle Creek Clean Water grant of $3,000. Once again, Elgin Clean Water Program funding has been secured, and Ducks Unlimited will be seeing the project this week to fund. Are there any questions on those 2 projects?
Any questions for Betsy? Hearing or seeing none. Looks like great projects and good use of land that isn't farmable or used for anything else. So it's nice to see these initiatives go forward. Thank you.
Okay, so Chair, could we have a motion
Yeah.
it would be basically a motion to fund 2203 and 2204.
Okay, so we have a motion that those 2204 and 2203 be moved as.
Mackey moves.
Mackey, seconded by
Herbert second.
Herbert. And when you're ready, you can call the vote, Elizabeth.
Kravitz,
Yes.
Jager,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Pelosa,
Yes.
Winfield,
Yes.
Warwick.
Yes. Okay, so moved. Moving on to the April Planning and Regulations Activity Report.
Thank you, Chair Warwick. Just looking for the board to receive the summary report that was in the advanced packages. There was a handful of permits issued since our last meeting, as well as some Planning Act reviews. And I'm happy to answer any questions of the members if they have any.
Okay, any questions for Joe? Okay, then looking for a motion to receive the April Planning and Regulations Activity Report. Mover,
Also move.
Winfield, seconded by
Harvey.
Harvey. Can you please call the vote, Elizabeth?
Cravitz.
Yes.
Jiguer,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Pelosa,
Yes.
Winfield,
Yes.
Warwick.
Yes.
And that motion passes.
So that moves, now we're moving into closed session.
Actually, Madam Chair, if I can make a recommendation, we do have a source water protection meeting.
Okay,
So if we could
use the time to do the source water.
do the
protection.
source and then go into close.
Okay, so I don't know if everybody heard that, but we're going to delay going into closed and go directly into our source water meeting. I'm just gonna bring up the agenda. Okay, so Kettle Creek Source Protection Authority agenda, that's the
Yes.
one, okay. So on our screen, we have the drinking water, the source protection. Again, it's the same video and audio notices, and we're back to that video recordings, everybody's seen that. So now we're into the Kettle Creek Source Protection Authority, and the agenda should be in front. There is a recommendation that the chair, vice chair, and all officers elected or appointed by the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority in 2022 serve in the same roles for the Kettle Creek Source Protection Authority in 2022. So everybody understand that? Any questions regarding that recommendation? If that's okay with the board, then I'm looking for a mover.
Peters.
Peters, seconded by
Pelosa.
Pelosa. Call the vote, please, Elizabeth.
Cravitz.
Yes.
Jiguer,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Pelosa,
Yes.
Winfield,
Yes.
Warwick.
Oh, sorry, I was meant for Ralph. Yes. Ralph, I'm being you now. All right, so that's so moved. So now we're moving on to the minutes of October 25th, 2021, Lake Erie Regional Management Committee, and September 9th, 2021, and December 2nd, 2021, Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee meeting be received, and further the minutes of the April 21st, 2021 Kettle Creek Source Protection Authority be approved. That was a lot to say. I'm looking for a mover.
Jones.
Okay, seconded by
Mackey.
Mackey. And Elizabeth, when you're ready, you can call the vote.
Cravitz.
Yes.
Jiguer,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Pelosa,
Yes.
Winfield,
Yes.
Warwick.
Yes,
And that motion passes.
and so moved. So now moving on to new business. Any new business?
Yes, the
Okay.
annual progress report is
All right.
the main business that we've met with to discuss today. So in accordance with Ontario Regulation 28707, the Source Protection Authority is required to submit an annual progress report, supplemental form, to the director by May 1st. The Kettle Creek Source Protection Annual Progress Report was included in your advance package. It was also circulated to the Lake Erie Region Source Protection Committee at their March 31st meeting. In the committee's opinion, the plan is progressing well and is on target to achieve the plan objectives. If you remember, there's only basically one drinking water threat that still exists in the Kettle Creek watershed. It's managed through a risk management plan. And all other policies of the plan are being enacted. So based on the Source Protection Committee's recommendation, you as the Conservation Source Protection Authority is now charged with submitting that annual progress report and form to the director and adding any additional comments that you may wish. Again, our Kettle Creek Source Protection Plan is well in hand and advancing well, and would be my recommendation that you submit it to the province.
Okay, Any questions regarding the progress report? Seems like we've got matters all in hand there. Dennis, were you moving?
I'm moving.
Okay, so we do have a mover, and that's Kravitz. So a seconder.
Herbert.
Okay, and Elizabeth, you can call the vote.
Kravitz,
Yes.
Jiguer, Harvey,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Loza,
Yes.
Winfield,
Yes.
Warwick.
Yes.
And that motion passes, and there's no further items.
No further items necessary, so I guess, do we need a motion to go back to our regular meeting and then we'll go into closed?
Yes,
Okay.
we can adjourn this meeting and then go back to. the
Okay.
regular.
So I'm looking for a mover to adjourn this meeting. Oh, you want to do it both at the same time? Okay, so I'm looking for a mover to adjourn this meeting, and when we
I'll
resume
move-
our
I'll so
regular
move.
meeting, go back into close for reasons of legal discussions.
We just stay on to the close. We don't have to go in and out.
Yes,
We
that's
just have
correct.
to, we just have to wait for the recording live to
Yep, that's
stop,
fine,
and then
thank
we
you.
can start. So we'll start with Kravitz
Mr. Chair.
moving that all of those things that I just mentioned, and a seconder,
I'll
Jones.
second it, Herbert.
Herbert, okay, and Elizabeth, when you're ready.
Kravitz,
Yes.
Jiguer,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Loza,
Yes.
Winfield,
Yes.
and Warwick.
Yes. So we are now going into close, but we're gonna wait for the live recording to stop, and then we will start with our closed session.